Get ready to discover answers in the Bible with Bayless Conley.
A good marriage has to be built on more than passion. It also has to be built on principle. And in the scriptures, we find the absolute best guidelines, the best principles for healthy relationships, healthy marriages in any generation. God's words, God's principles are never outdated. And today, we're going to go back 3,500 years and take a look at some wedding vows that are extremely relevant today. I don't know if you realized it or not, but God looked at Israel as his bride. In Jeremiah, God says, you've been an unfaithful wife, even to the degree that he put them away and gave them a bill of divorce. Yes, God is a divorcee. Some of you need to think about that, because there are some people that have been through a divorce and you've just written them off. Friend, God had a divorce. In Ezekiel and Hosea, the Lord uses the same analogy, that he is married to his people. The metaphor is carried on into the New Testament. The church is referred to as the bride of Christ. And God is saying the closest relationship that you can understand, husband and wife, that's what I want to be to you. That's how close I want to be with you. Now, after God brings his people out of Egypt, he gives Moses the Decalogue, or the 10 Commandments. And it's not just a list of do's and don'ts. It's not some stairway to heaven that if you do these things, you can eventually make it to heaven. As much as anything, they were wedding vows for God's people. God was saying, if you want a long-term relationship with me that is healthy and growing, here's what needs to happen. This is what you need to imbibe. In fact, look at the previous context with me. In chapter 19 of Exodus, verse 4, God said, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. God is saying, I had the whole earth to choose from, and I chose you. You're my special treasure. I brought you to myself. It's actually quite intimate language. It's very romantic language. And then directly following, God saying these things to his people, that I've chosen you above everyone, that you're to be mine. Then God gives them these wedding vows, the 10 Commandments. In Exodus chapter 20 and verse 3, have no other gods before me. Verse 4 and 5, no graven images. Verse 7, don't take the Lord's name in vain. Verse 8, keep the Sabbath. Verse 12, honor your parents. Verse 13, don't murder. Verse 14, don't commit adultery. Verse 15, don't steal. Verse 16, don't bear false witness. And verse 17, don't covet. And we want to look at them, and I'm going to speak briefly about their relevance vertically, between us and God, but we want to concentrate on how they just might be applicable horizontally when it comes to a marriage relationship, or in some cases, any relationship for that matter. So let's look at the first one. In verse 3, you shall have no other gods before me. God is saying, I want an exclusive relationship. I want to be your one and only. I won't be satisfied being flavor of the month. St. Augustine said, if Christ is not valued above all, he's not valued at all. How appropriate in marriage as well, that there is a devotion to that one person. Henry Ford, on his 50th wedding anniversary, said, the reason I've had a successful marriage is the same reason I've been successful in business. I stick to the same model. In traditional wedding vows, the couple pledges their devotion until death do us part. That you go into it thinking, okay, there's not going to be any competition. I'm not going to be shopping. My wife doesn't have to worry about me shopping around. She's it. I'm sticking to one model. And by the grace of God, she's sticking to one model. The model seems to be changing a little bit. I look in the mirror and yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But it's not, this one and this one, and there's just not that option. It's not open. If you're going to have a solid relationship, you have to have that mindset. When Adam slept in the garden and God took a rib, he fashioned the woman out of the rib and brought her to the man. God didn't reach back in and say, okay, there's Eve, and there's Samantha, and there's Lois, and he just took one rib.